Every night, Professor William Roentgen worked late in his laboratory in Würzburg, Germany, testing electricity and measuring magnetic effects. Often he forgot to go upstairs for supper. One November night in 1895, his wife Bertha sent their servant downstairs to the laboratory to remind her husband that supper was ready. Still, he did not come. Again, Bertha sent the servant, and again she waited for William to come upstairs. At last he appeared, his thick black hair on end, his bushy beard askew. He sat at the table, ate a few bites, checked the time on his gold watch, and then rushed back to the laboratory. For the next few weeks, William stayed in his laboratory night and day. He ate there, he slept there, but mainly he worked there, repeating his experiments. No one knew what he was investigating behind closed doors. Bertha had no idea. His students had no clue. The other professors had no inkling what William was studying. "I have discovered something interesting," was all he would say. Finally, William brought Bertha down to the laboratory. He placed her hand on a photographic plate used to take pictures and told her not to move. He wanted to take a picture of her hand. Then he pulled the drapes and put out the lamps. It was pitch black in the laboratory. William turned on a switch that sent electricity through his equipment. The only sound in the laboratory was the ticking of the clock. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. After 15 minutes, William lifted Bertha's hand. As soon as the photograph was developed, William rushed to show it to Bertha. She looked at it and shuddered with fear. She saw a picture of bones, her bones, and they made her think of skeletons and death. Her wedding ring seemed to be floating around a bony finger. William tried to comfort Bertha, telling her not to be afraid. "I have discovered invisible rays," he said. "These rays penetrate living flesh and show our bones. They also let us see through boxes and books," he explained. William called them X-rays because X stood for the unknown. Although he didn't know what they were, he knew they were important. "This is something new," he told Bertha. "I must investigate." He built himself a tin box large enough to work in. From inside the darkened box, William continued to study the rays. He realized that just as sunlight passed through a glass window, the new rays passed through wood or flesh or other non-metallic objects. By January, William was ready to explain his discovery at a scientific meeting. Softly, almost shyly, he said, he had heard about studies others were doing with airtight glass tubes known as Crookes tubes. He wanted to repeat their studies and carry out some of his own using these vacuum tubes. He described how he had set up his equipment on that November night. First, he covered a Crookes vacuum tube with black paper so that no light could escape from it. Then he connected the tube to electricity. Next, he pulled the heavy drapes and turned off all the lamps. When the laboratory was in total darkness, William sent electricity through the Crookes tube. He was startled to see a green glow across the darkened room. What caused that glow? He asked himself. He turned off the electricity and the glow disappeared. It could not have come from the Crookes tube, he reasoned, because the tube was completely covered. Again he turned on the electricity, and again he saw the glow. Lighting a match, he noticed that the glow was coming from a paper lying on a bench across the room. The paper was covered with special chemicals, but it did not glow by itself. There had to be some kind of energy causing the chemicals in the paper to glow like that. But what could it be? William moved the chemically treated paper farther away from the Crookes tube. Still, it glowed when he turned on the current. He placed a book between the tube and the paper. The glow persisted. What would block the glow, he wondered. He tried fabric, a wooden box, and finally his own hand. The rays passed through almost everything, he told the hush group. He then decided to take a picture of his hand. A photograph would give him visual proof that the rays existed. Would someone in the audience volunteer to have a picture made of his hand? A famous professor came to the stage. William placed his hand on a photographic plate, just as he had done with Bertha. After many long minutes, the photograph was ready. William held it up and passed it slowly before the astounded audience. They saw the bones in the professor's hand, joint by joint. It was miraculous. Everyone burst into cheers and insisted the rays be named Rontgen rays, after William. His friends told him to take out a patent on his discovery. He would become rich, as well as famous, they said. As a scientist, William wanted to share his knowledge with others and help find positive uses for X-rays. He felt his discovery belonged to the world, and he did not care about patents and making money. The news traveled across Europe and over the ocean to the United States. Almost overnight, William became famous and began to receive more mail than he could answer. Reporters came to interview him. "Is it light?" one asked. "No," he said. "Is it electricity?" "Not in any known form," he replied. "What is it?" "I don't know," William answered in all honesty. In a letter to William's cousin, Bertha wrote that since the discovery, their life was no longer the same. "Often we are almost dizzy with all the praise and honor," she admitted. Scientists all around the world began studying X-rays. That first year, there were at least 1,000 papers published describing those studies. Doctors found immediate uses for X-rays. Now they could locate bullets or broken bones in their patients' bodies. They could even see where Siamese twins were joined. Soon, everyone wanted an X-ray picture. In New Jersey, Thomas Edison, the inventor of the electric light, began experimenting with X-rays. Instead of taking permanent photographs, he used a fluorescent screen similar to a movie screen, and people lined up for the novelty of seeing their bones displayed right through their clothing. Then something terrible happened. People working with X-rays began to get sick. Mr. Hawks, who demonstrated a machine in Bloomingdale Brothers department store, noticed the skin from his hands turning red and peeling off. His fingernails stopped growing. His hair began falling out. Edison's assistant, Clarence Daly, had to have his left hand amputated when its skin rotted away. He also lost several fingers on his right hand. 6 years later, he died. There were many others who suffered and died from overexposure to X-rays. No one had thought the new rays might be dangerous. Without realizing its importance, William had used a lead lining in his tin box, which had protected him against the rays. Soon everyone would use lead for protection. They would also learn to lower the exposure time and reduce the amount of rays used. In 1901, the first Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to William for his discovery of X-rays. He traveled to Stockholm, Sweden, for the ceremony, but in his will he gave the prize money to the University of Würzburg for research. As honored as he was to receive the prize, William told Bertha his greatest personal reward came from having solved a problem through careful research. When Bertha died in 1919, the Rontgens had been married for almost 50 years. William was lost without her, but he felt better when he talked to her picture. Seated before it, he told her his thoughts or read her the important news items of the day. Shortly after her death, he retired from research and teaching, but continued to enjoy the outdoors until his own death 4 years later. Although modern X-ray equipment is more complicated than William's simple tin box, both produce the same invisible rays. Scientists have identified them as electromagnetic rays, similar to light rays but not visible to the human eye. Today's X-ray machines still contain a vacuum tube with 2 separate pieces of metal enclosed within a thick lead lining. When electricity passes through the first piece of metal, it gets hot. The heat causes invisible electrons in the atoms of the metal to speed up. They strike the second bit of metal, called the target, and send out X-rays through a window in the machine. How pleased William would be to know the many advances made with X-rays since his discovery. Today, art experts study paintings with them to be sure the paintings are not fakes. Engineers use them to be certain that machinery and equipment are properly made. Airport workers scan baggage in search of bombs, weapons, and drugs. With X-rays, doctors have learned to study every part of the body and use the rays to treat many forms of cancer. Dentists find cavities or disease in teeth and bones. Scientists study fossils to learn how ancient animals looked and lived. They also study the bones and teeth of mummies. New equipment is being invented all the time. Computers have been combined with X-ray machines to create CAT, computerized axial tomography scans, which show cross-sections or slices of the human body and even of ancient dinosaur skulls. Soon, a powerful X-ray microscope called the Advanced Light Source will be completed. Because it will study living tissue rather than slides from dead specimens, scientists will learn more about how cells in our bodies work. Its beams will also be used to study chemical reactions such as combustion or burning. The research may someday help reduce pollution. Some say that William's discovery of X-rays was just an accident. Yet William had spent many years working in his laboratory, painstakingly conducting one experiment after another. That November night in 1895 was no different from any other night. He had set up the glass vacuum tube, sent electricity through it, and noticed something unusual. Another scientist might have missed the mysterious green glow or thought it unimportant. William did not. He noticed the glow and knew he had to investigate it. After weeks of repeating his experiments, William shared his results with fellow scientists. For William Rontgen, solving research problems was more important than winning awards or getting rich.